bam, bam, President Chad on the inside with the man Adelaide. And you know what time it is? It is the EPL Rewind, where we talk about well, not all the games, but we touch and talk about all the hot topics coming out at game week 10. You know what I mean? It's at 10 whole games. We don't want to be here for 2 hours. So we're just going to touch on the hot ones. Adelaide, how you doing, brother?
Hey, I doing well good, I doing well good. Well good.
Nice. Before we jump into it, I have to remind everybody, if you haven't done it as yet, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Why do you need to do that? Because this channel has always been giving away nice stuff. We have a Wayne Rooney 2008 t-shirts to give away, and we're going to be doing that giveaway in December. All you have to do is type hashtag the United Hour and share one of the videos of the channel. So if you're watching this one, just share it. Just press share, send it to your Facebook, send it to Twitter, send it to IG, and just hashtag the United Hour, and you're going to be eligible to win that Wayne Rooney t-shirt. So make sure you subscribe. You might want to tell your friends about the t-shirt, but let your friends know about the channel too. So Adelaide, I don't really want to start to talk about it, but I think we need to start at the end. The last game on the weekend was Manchester United versus Manchester City, the Manchester derby. Manchester City dismantling Manchester United 3-0. Now we know in recent times, and not even recent times, or even under Sir Alex got 6 from City, the scoreline has been a little more emphatic, but when you watch the game, and it was really a dismantling. City was almost in total control.
Well, yeah, but again, I think for me it wasn't the dismantling. We have come to expect seasons now that Manchester City is going to be dominant against whoever they play. You always expect Manchester City to be a very dominant team. That is the fulcrum of any Pep Guardiola team, really. So that wasn't the thing that would have rubbed me bad in that game. I think definitely the approach of the game from Manchester United was abysmal. It seemed as though those guys is almost as though they just went out there because they had to play a game. Like, okay, this game on the schedule, so let me just go outside and go on the pitch. There wasn't any heart. There wasn't any kind of. Listen to me. You ask anybody who knows anything about football, and it doesn't even matter what form they are in. You could be who? You could be Real Madrid. You could be whoever team you choose to be. Going to Old Trafford is a nightmare. It's a ground that you never want to go to, regardless of the form of the team, because the team normally goes out there. If they're playing atrocious all over, they normally have that sense of pride when they're playing home. And it's the first time in a long while they watch a game and it look as though they were so intimidated by this Manchester City side. Everybody was saying, I heard a lot of people say it, which, kudos to Bernardo Silva. He had a brilliant game. But if we really get into who watched the game, did Bernardo Silva have a brilliant game, or was he allowed space and time to do whatever he wanted? Like, there was no closing down, there was no zoning, there was no trying to set traps to isolate. He was literally like a kid in a playground, like a star player in an intercultural training. And for me, yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, of course, kudos to him for an emphatic game. He really had a great game. But I think it's more of a case of Manchester United being very, very, very poor, as opposed to Man City being overly dominant.
I haven't had my say on this game, so I will take the opportunity now. I think the coach got the lineup wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he made an error by taking off Amrabat at halftime, even though Amrabat had a yellow card. I think that was an error. When I say that, Eriksen, yes, you want to have some degree of control in your midfield when you're playing Manchester City. You would like, when you get the ball, that you could move the ball forward efficiently and not just give it back to City. And I understand that. I appreciate that. However, Eriksen is not good at tackling he is not good at closing long play. He is excellent offensively. He will get back and give you numbers. He will run back. He will give you numbers in defense, but he doesn't close down anybody. If I'm an offensive player and I see Ericsson running towards me, I know I have the freedom to do what I want to do because Ericsson is not going to come in, even if the ball is dangling out there. He's not going to rush in and do a tackle. He's not going to. So you're not intimidated by his presence. Amrabat was causing different problems. I would have even started probably even a Hannibal. I know Hannibal may be a little wild and willy, right? I know he might be a little extra aggressive, but this was the kind of game where you needed that grit in the midfield. You needed, if anybody was to be, and it's difficult to harass players so good on the ball like Manchester City players, right? But if it is, you needed somebody to do that. These were the kind of players that needed to start. Amrabat needed to stay on the pitch. You had to trust that he have the discipline with that yellow card. You needed to start somebody like a Hannibal. I could understand why you would have started as Scott McTominay. He gives you a little something in attack, and he will put in a tackle, right? Now, none of these players are well known for moving the ball forward. So what? In recent history, we have to accept the reality. The person that has had the most results against Manchester City as a United manager in recent history has been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't trying to move the ball through the tilts. He was playing counter football. Defend for their life. You get the ball, Rashford, whoever, run up the road, boop, kick the ball up and hope for the best. And he has had more success against this Pep Guardiola team. Now, one would say, oh, you are Manchester United. You're not supposed to be looking to play that way. You know, Liverpool don't play that way. Well, as far as I'm concerned, they do, right? They try to be very compact. And then when they get the ball, they try to move the ball as fast as possible forward. You don't want to be playing through the lines against Manchester City, right? And you needed players with that grit. You needed players who would put in a tackle. You needed players that when Bernardo Silva look up and he see Amrabat coming at him, or he see, even though he's a young player, coming at him, even if it's a Kobe Mino, he know them fellas coming at him. They're going to come at you. If you stand up there with the ball, you're going to get hit. They're not just going to come and try to guide you in a direction. And I mean, that was never Ericsson's game. So I'm not taking a slight at Ericsson, right? Ericsson is what he has always been, and he's great at what he does. But what he is not is, a defensive-minded player. He's not that gritty player, and you needed that in the midfield. I understand what the manager was thinking, but I think he just got it wrong. Forget about trying to control the game with this playing toe-to-toe with City. Forget that. Pack the midfield with aggressive players and kick the ball up.
I fully agree with you because in any by any stretch of the imagination, you watch Manchester United's full roster, and their full roster would lend to the assumption that the team could potentially be one of the most lethal counter-attacking teams in football. As you rightfully said, it is not their typical style of play, but at this point in time, it is what is going to be a most efficient approach.
Especially
as you rightfully said as well, Manchester City have proven, I believe it's the game against Sheffield when everybody thought they would have run so much riot. But they were proven in that game that if you put enough muscle and enough tension on them in the center of the park, it breaks up their rhythm and they tend to play sideways continuously without penetration to try to spread you, right? And you watch Sheffield United and Manchester United, and Sofiane Amrabat, he managed to get a yellow card early, but he was doing an exceptional job, not just at the tackling. Okay, he got a yellow card, but what was brilliant for me from Sofiane, what I give him his flowers for, was his ability to close the gaps before the ball reached the players. So you find that he was so alert in the game that he would reach up on the players. So by the time they touch the ball, he was already there. Does he need to be a little bit more cautious in terms of knowing when to throw the tackle when he reaches on a player? Yes. But I think at that point in time, they had Manchester City a bit more uncomfortable with the movement of the ball. So you find that all of a sudden now they were trying to play these longer range passes to spread wider to try to pull them apart because they weren't taking the chance to make the extra pass in the middle. With him coming out, as you said, the entire dynamic shifted. And one thing about it is Manchester City is the type of team, if you are playing probably some other team, Arsenal, Liverpool even, when these teams begin to play patient football, it normally lends itself to the team becoming complacent. Anybody that knows Manchester City is the complete opposite. Once you give them comfort and they find that rhythm and they pass and it looks like nothing is happening, that is when they are most dangerous. And I think that mistake from Ten Hag, and let's be real, right? So Ten Hag needs to do, I believe he needs to do a special press conference. And this press conference should be circled around taking responsibility for a great bit of the downfalls that Manchester United have had in results in recent times, because the players are getting blamed. Now, okay, Rashford really could do much better, but we have seen some really, really, really strange decisions from Manchester United, from Eric Ten Hag in particular. He's been making some really, really weird decisions. There was one game, who were they playing, boy? Can't remember who they were playing, and Hoyland, the new signing, he was absolutely devastating the team with his muscle and his direct play up top. He wasn't scoring, but he was causing a problem. And for some reason, when the second half started, like 10, 15 minutes out of the second half, there was this senseless tweak where he was now drifted a little wider, and all of a sudden, Marcus Rashford was attempting these running behinds, like this C run, to play more central. And I was like, what sense does that even make? You are having a team, their back is against the wall, and you tweak the tactic that was working. Manchester City, I could be very certain that Pep Guardiola and the entire Manchester City camp has walked away from Old Trafford knowing that they are never going to have a game this easy against Manchester United as they would have Sunday. They would highly doubt that a coach could get as tactically wrong against them, because they are the most, listen to me, regardless what people say, the most monotonous team in world football is Man City, has been Man City. You could say exactly how Man City is going to play football with your eyes closed. The advantage he has is that he has different type of players, but the system is the same. So then if you know the system is the same and you have Sofian Amrabat closing him down, okay, congested right there. Don't be idle and try to play ball out and play football in Manchester City. You don't have that confidence. You don't have that roster. Continue knocking away at them. Sooner or later, frustration could build. They are not playing Brentford. They're not playing Chelsea. They're not playing Everton. They're not playing Liverpool. There's the Manchester derby.
And another thing I observe about this team, man, you see when they're playing lesser teams, they would look to run up a score.
Yeah.
You see when they're playing big teams and they know they're ahead, they just play keep ball.
Yep.
Now, if you slip, they will score on you again, eh?
Yeah.
But they don't press with the same intensity.
No.
Attack-wise. They just be like, you know what? We score, we are ahead. Let me keep the ball, right? Let's not put ourselves in danger. And if you are being aggressive in the midfield, you have the opportunity of winning the ball back and maybe hitting them something quick on the counter, right?
Yeah.
Because they just take the foot off the gas. This team, when depending on who they're playing, teams they respect, they tend to take their foot off the gas. They don't try to run up no score on you.
Yeah.
And they give you an opportunity to get back in the game. It's a flaw I have seen with this City team over and over again. They just give certain teams an opportunity to get back in the game. And United did not capitalize. By giving them that ease in the midfield, they had an easier time in the second half than the first half. So the first half, they get what some people may consider a lucky penalty. But, you know, the bottom line is it was easier for them in the second half than the first half. So you took your advantage of. Let me just call out the scores. Haaland had a double and an assist. Foden scored from Haaland's assist, a header. And we had Bernardo Silva and Rodrigo getting the other assist for that game. So it was a total. And the truth be told, we need to mention an honorable mention for Onana, Manchester United.
Oh, yeah.
Because the final score was 3-0. And as much as he's been in for a lot of criticism recently, if it wasn't for him, The score could have easily been
Yep.
6-0.
And particularly Haaland, say from the header.
The
I
Haaland
mean,
and
that's a
Foden's first
contender for
header,
save of the season already.
those were like point blank headers with
Yeah, yeah,
power.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was thinking goal already. I know I was ready
yeah,
to bow my head and be stressed. And next thing I see the ball flying back out, I was
yeah.
surprised.
He had a
So
couple saves that were contenders for save of the season. And then besides that, there was no urgency for me on the touchline. Like Alex Ferguson might have been who he might have threw out 3 pack of dynamite and started trip off on the sidelines because he would have been like, "What all you doing out there?" And I was so watching. I found it almost humorous that this guy was watching his performance and was so cool. You are playing home, you are being humiliated, and you remain so composed. That is unheard of. I mean, not to put pressure or to make him sound bad, but not even David Moyes was doing that, President Chad. Not even David Moyes was doing that on the sideline. So bad day at the office from the coach. The players could have done much better, but personally, Ten Hag has to take the brunt of responsibility for this loss. Has to.
yeah, well, we spent a lot of time talking about Manchester United. I'm depressed enough. Let's move along.
Yeah,
Moving along. So we need to talk about Wolves Newcastle. And the main reason we
yeah,
need to talk about Wolves Newcastle is because Newcastle has shown themselves that last season wasn't just a flash in the pan.
true.
Right? They have shown that we made it up for, and we are more likely than not looking to make it again.
Yep.
And we had Wolves suffering a major setback with Neto being injured, possibly out for a little while.
Yeah.
Neto being the this season so far leading assister in the game. A matter of fact, it's a good thing I didn't bring him in because I was looking to bring him into my fantasy team because he was a man to me flying under the radar. Plenty of people wasn't talking about Neto, but every week Neto was doing his thing.
Yep.
So Wolves are going to struggle to score goals, but
Yeah.
defensively, Wolves have looked pretty compact. Newcastle, well, 2 goals from Wilson. For Wolves, Lamela scored and He-Chan scored for them. What do you have to say about Newcastle going forward? Because Newcastle seem like they definitely are top 4 challenger this term.
Well, yeah, for sure. For me, this was the game of the weekend. I watched the game, and this game was fireworks, nothing short of it. As you rightfully said, Newcastle has what has impressed me the most so far is the fact that Newcastle is actually playing in Europe. And when you would have think that they would have crumbled, they are still being very, very, very competitive and at the top level. So they really are proving that last season wasn't any fluke, and that this team is going to contend with the best of the teams. What I liked as well is it proved that Newcastle, Eddie Howe definitely has this team, this locker room behind him. He's definitely a player manager because we had Isak out and Callum Wilson came in as though he was starting every game week so far. He came in bang ready, bang on form, high performance, and this is not a young player we're talking about neither. But the players that come in for Newcastle, everybody looks ready for the opportunity when it arises and they are taking chances at it. I mean, I saw it particularly in the game against AC Milan in the Champions League. We see it in a couple games before. We saw it again against Wolves in the sense that what they have to work on that wasn't there last season is that they are having these, how to say it, boy, complacency spells. So they'll be dominating the game for quite a while, and then there are some spells where they get kind of lackluster. They start to pass kind of wayward. Almiron and they stopped being so direct, so they started kind of cut back and play the ball on the wider channels, passing backwards a little too often, which is not synonymous with who they are. Um, it caused them against Wolves. It did. Other teams, it didn't really cause them that much. But it's something that they definitely have to watch going forward because the top teams and who tend to be champions, they tend to break out of that habit. They don't believe in the complacency zone. So that is one thing to watch from them. But is Newcastle United a team seriously to watch? Hell yeah, in my opinion.
The player that they would have gotten from AC Milan
Tonali.
that is in danger of being facing a long-term suspension because
Yeah,
of gambling
betting, yeah.
issues in Italy. Do you think if that suspension comes down the pipe, do you think that would negatively affect their season?
Well, yeah, I think already you would have seen it in terms of in terms of when the initial news came out. I watched the press conference, obviously, because Tonali is one of my players. I love Tonali. So I would have watched the press conference after hearing about the allegations and stuff. And Eddie Howe wasn't the most composed as he normally would be. He wasn't he wasn't pleased and he didn't seem comfortable. Obviously, Tonali has become a fulcrum part of his midfield, and he would have bought him to get depth as well because you're contending in Europe. Definitely, him being out for a while is going to affect the team for sure because it's a key player. Especially how Newcastle plays, they need that player who could be a workhorse and a box to box. Um, for them to compete consistently. What this means for sure, he's already going to be banned for 8 months. And what this means for sure is that the breakout player this season so far for them in Longstaff, it means that we have to keep a keen eye on Longstaff because he could end up running down himself. The possibility of becoming leggy or even sustaining an injury, hopefully not. That becomes a greater possibility now because where Tonali would have been an ideal replacement to shuffle the midfield, that is no longer here. And the longer the ban is, it's definitely going to put a strain on the midfielders. Case in point, if we if people for many people who are watching and aren't noticing or haven't noticed, Bruno Guimaraes has been made almost like what Xavi has been to Barcelona now because he isn't a ball winner. So that was working brilliantly with Tonali being able to be there and Sean Longstaff, with one being able to be a safety, the other being an all and out box to box, which were having them hitting sides five consistently game by game. And Bruno Guimaraes not bringing up stats or anything, but being the rhythm that holds everything together. Now with Tonali out, we are going to have a situation where either the safety position or the box-to-box position is going to have to be sacrificed because I wouldn't see Bruno Guimaraes' new role being sacrificed at all. It's brilliant. But with Tonali out, Longstaff is either going to be asked to be more of a safety player and distribute, or a box-to-box player and leave Bruno Guimaraes more or less exposed because he's not a ball winner. And to see what effect that has, it'll be interesting. But Newcastle United should still be fine to at least finish in the top five, top six in the Premier League. How do they manage all the other games though? He's done it in a couple games. Would it be a trend to play to utilize Murphy, who is showing that he could possibly be a utility player? He uses him wide, but he also uses him down the middle channel, almost as single-handedly a box-to-box player as well. And Murphy started off as a defender. Could he be a filling player that could transform in the middle there? That is left to be seen. But this is definitely a blow. Tonali is a blow to Newcastle, one way or the other.
All right, all right. So let's move on to Crystal Palace Spurs. Now, of course, we had to talk about Spurs because Spurs are the return of the elephant. The return. Last season, we had an elephant in the tree, Arsenal. They stayed up in that tree real long. That tree was a real hard boy. That branch took a long time to break. But eventually, Arsenal had fallen down, and we come into the second season, and we have the return of the elephant part 2. And Spurs is up there handling their business. This was a comfortable game for Spurs.
Yeah.
2-0. I think Crystal Palace scored after in the dregs, after Spurs had already gone up. The goal scores was Son, and then Crystal Palace had an own goal scored by Ward, and John Ayew scored for Crystal Palace. So, assist Madison continues to be an excellent purchase for Crystal Palace.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnson were the assisters for Spurs, and Anderson was the assister for Crystal Palace. Now I call it the return of the elephant part 2, right? I've been saying that, and but what say you? Do you think we're not talking about the game? The game is not important. Do you think this Spurs team, under this new manager, under this system that you have seen them play so far, with no midweek football, no Champions League, no Europa, right? They will have a pick up in January, but that is minor. Do you think this Spurs team could win the league?
No, no. My opinion is no. And the reason why I'm going to call one player. People say one player is not enough, but I'm going to call one player. He's a player that I pick in my fantasy all the time, but he's also the downfall of Tottenham a lot of the time. And that player is Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro is the equivalent to Theo Hernandez. In terms of this guy going forward down the wing as a wing back is definitely one of the most lethal in world football. He's devastating there. But Pedro Porro is always a liability. Every game that he's asked to defend, he is being is up in the air. There's a lot of questions being asked. He's either caught out, giving away unnecessary fouls, getting beat, and he don't get the normal beat. He does get the YouTube kind of beat. So he's a player who I think as time goes along, definitely. So when they bounce up a team like when they bounce up, let's say, when they go and get stuff in the second half of the season, when they bounce up teams like Manchester United, like Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, if Neto is fit, even Wolves, he's going to have a problem. If Ibrahimovic Easy from Crystal Palace come back, even Crystal Palace, he's going to be smoked. And this is a big concern for me. Nothing is being done. And I know the coach because the coach has had the same brilliant effect at Celtic. He was never great at Celtic defensively. Never. I mean, Scottish Premier League don't really have a lot of high-profile teams to threaten your defense. But every time you would watch the Old Firm derby, he would be exposed at the back, particularly his wing backs. The thing about this coach, Postecoglou, is that he is similar to what Pochettino was at Spurs and at PSG in terms of I'm not going to fix my defense, but my offense is going to be so little that you may end up in a situation where to beat me have to outscore me. So I may struggle at times. You may score goals against me, but you're going to have to outscore me. Besides that as well, Son is on bang on form. He is bang on form. He's doing really well. But however, I am seeing it becoming possibly an issue as the season goes along because this should be Son's team. And while there's seeming to be synergy, some games you could see Son being a bit frustrated, obviously, have expectations. But the man in the team, as you rightfully said, is actually James Maddison. So a lot more of the ball is being given to James Maddison, which should be expected because he's a central attacking midfielder. He's a creative player. But Son, this is Son's team, and Son is so accustomed when Harry Kane was there, Son would get most of the ball and would be able to carry the ball and create the openings for Harry Kane. Now the tables have turned where Son now has become almost like the Harry Kane, and now Maddison is enjoying the possession of the ball. Temperament-wise, does Son have the temperament to accept that and be like, okay, well, we'll just continue going with it because it's working, and be almost second fiddle or sharing the top dog position with Maddison? That is left to be seen. If it does work out, they could contend, but second half of the season, so I'm going to call certain things. I cannot see this Spurs team beating Manchester United definitely in the second round of the season. And that is because regardless how bad it is, we have seen it season after season when everybody say Manchester are going and finish 12th and 14th. These teams have, I don't know what I'll tell them, but coming on late in the season, these teams transform. So I don't see that. I don't see them beating Man City. Arsenal is a London derby. And I think personally, with the expectations, they may stumble there. They may be Chelsea. That might happen. But they are going to struggle, particularly for me, where they are going to lose the points is when everybody like 14 games, so like 4 more games away from now, all the teams are probably going to realize, let us target Pedro Porro. Once that happens,
And
it's
teams
going to be a big problem.
teams with the strong wingers that could do
Yeah,
it
yeah,
will
yeah.
have success.
Because if
I hear
Manchester
you.
United plays against Spurs and they decide to switch to put Marcus Rashford, let's say, to target Pedro Porro, it's a lost cause. It's a lost cause. And because Pedro Porro commits so high, he doesn't commit that to just get a chance to whip a ball in for assist. Because of how out of sort he is positionally as well. He creates multiple avenues for problems. Like the player can either go down the ring and pin across, or they be so out of whack, they get the opportunity to even cut inside. And if you have trademark wingers or wingers with potential like Rashford, like even Foden, we could go down the line. It's going to cost you a lot. So let's hope that situation is fixed. Let's hope it's fixed. But I can't see them winning the league.
All right, fair enough, fair enough. As we say, people, as I say, the return of the elephant part 2. Before we continue, we must give a shout out to the fan club Trin City Mall.
Yeah.
You know, the place where you want to go to for all authentic memorabilia, sports memorabilia. That is definitely where you want to be. And they also have pop memorabilia as well. For those people into fantasy football, look out for the Fantasy Blitz. We have our announcement of the first round of winners.
Yes.
And you know you're going to get a check to spend in store from the fan club. So if you're not part of the Fantasy Blitz fantasy team, I'm going to put a link down in the bottom so you could check that out. You need to join because, I mean, who doesn't want to get stuff from the fan club? You know what I'm saying? Everybody, all of us, we like sports, not just football alone. We like sports. So check the fan club out. Let's talk a little bit about Chelsea. Now, I know Chelsea supporters don't ever want to talk about Chelsea. I'm talking to some Chelsea men, they tell me they don't even watch games anymore. They just watch the score after. They just watch the score after the game. They don't even watch the games anymore because the team is so bad, so inconsistent. They try to help their mental health by not watching the games. And I agree with them. I must be the only one who does suffer and watch Manchester United regardless. I watch it my team right through. But I understand. The pain and the suffering is real. Chelsea, after getting a nice result last weekend, a game where, in my opinion, Chelsea should have won. They should have beaten Arsenal.
Yeah.
They were 2-0 up and they allowed Arsenal back into the game. But still, 2-2 against a team close to the top of the table, a team in form, a team that finished second last season. That was a good result for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And then this week, they played Brentford and lost. You know, Mbumo and Pinnock scored with Mbumo and Mope getting the 2 assists. I don't even know what to ask you about Chelsea. You know? I don't know what to ask you about Chelsea because let's take this angle this week. We'll talk about something else next week. I'm sure Chelsea will feature again, you know, before too long. The most outstanding player for Chelsea, for me, has been Palmer.
Yes. Hands-on.
And it is disappointing that one of your cheapest and definitely your youngest purchases has come into your team and has become the creative force. When this team has spent so much money on so much quality players, that just have not come into the Premier League and seem to click. Palmer has been able to just hit the ground running. I don't
Yeah.
think they even bought him as a starter because he was
No.
coming off the bench. But after his
Yeah.
performances, you just couldn't leave him on the bench.
It's
He
true.
has been their best player. What say you?
Um. Well, I know you're now talking return of the elephant. Well, this elephant somewhere across the desert walking dehydrated, ready to fall down because this elephant dying a slow and painful death. Um, I am glad it happening this way. I have followed Pochettino many years because I love his offensive mind. His offensive mind is really, really wonderful. But I'm glad it's happening this way in terms of probably helping him to develop in terms of team balance because he has done it with Tottenham. He's done it with PSG. Listen, this guy does this. And what I'm talking about is not even when the league started. No. You watch back all these different teams, and if you get a chance, watch back the pre-seasons. And what this guy is notorious for the preseason is that when he plays the preseason game, the first game, if the team looks good in the first game, he barely changes that team in preseason. Now, preseason is for you to use your players to see how different players are coming along and gelling and all these things. Pochettino has always been notorious for playing similar team that is going to start the Premier League and everything from the jump in preseason. The benefit that works for him is that at Tottenham, he had Harry Kane, he had Son, he had a lot of players that stepped up. At PSG, it was again superstar players at his will. So these players, even though they were the same players, it would work out for you. You had the team that you had playing running for preseason with Chelsea. You had Nkunku, who was looking wonderful and had great chemistry with Jackson as well, and Sterling, and they coming along. The thing about it is because of how he built his system for the entirety of preseason, his green light player, and I don't know why he would have chosen to do that because Nkunku is your forward, and he was playing off of Jackson, so almost like a green light forward. But he made Nkunku like the green light player. Period. Now Nkunku has come and gotten injured, and all of a sudden the entire structure has fallen apart. And for me, I am absolutely blown away that you would have spent so much money on all these different players and you have no idea what any of them strengths are. You're playing Modric out of position. All the players that you bought, you're playing them out of position. The moral on the high. And I'm like, you're depending on Sterling to come in to help you out. Thiago Silva had to be balling at everybody in the back there. It's almost like you have no idea what's going on. And as you rightfully said, thank God for Cole Palmer because Cole Palmer came in as a breath of fresh air. He at least holding the team together to some extent. But at the end of the day, it's how much Cole Palmer can do. How much could he really do? We have seen since Cole Palmer came in as well, even in the Brentford game as well. Where is he running off the ball? All these other players and their offensive players were making so many runs off the ball when Nkunku was fit. And I've watched this game and I counted at least four, it could be more, but I counted at least four occasions where Cole Palmer picked up the ball from a more deeper position and started to make a run diagonally across the field. And there was no movement in front of him of the ball. So even though he would have created space, no one was being made available for it. I mean, yes, they conceded the second goal late, trying to go for an equalizer against Brentford. But even in that game, that put a lot more to be desired as well. If I'm Chelsea's owner, well, Bowley don't know nothing about anything else but balance sheet and Microsoft Excel and things. So we could understand that. But at the end of the day, you brought in a coach. If I am buying Mauricio Pochettino as a coach, I am not expecting my defense to fix. He has never been good defensively. So I will be bringing him in expecting that, okay, he taking money, he want to buy players. I am not surprised he bought so many offensive players. He bought some defensive ones, but I don't know what they're doing because he outscores opponents. But for me, anybody will know. It doesn't matter which team. For me, the most lethal player in world football, and I'm glad it's a Caribbean person, and I put anybody, I challenge anybody to debate now, is Pinnock. Pinnock from Brentford has been his movement in that box on dead balls, his accuracy, The guy is just almost a certain goal from corners, from free kicks, and it confuses me that you get a corner and you don't even try to double up on Pinnock. But I have to double up on Pinnock. You don't want to give this guy a chance. Okay, well, he now come off an injury. Okay, he could have now come back from Mars. He's in my penalty box, and they have a dead ball. I had to mark this guy. What you telling me? What are you telling me? You couldn't give him a chance. And the fact of the matter is, Chelsea looked. There were times in the game where they looked as though they were going to do something, but that has been the template of Chelsea for the whole season, where they look as though they're going to, oh, good, yeah, we have hope. That's what I'm saying. Chelsea fans need to cut salt out of the diet because for sure their blood pressure high every week. Chelsea makes you feel so excited and raise your pressure, and then all of a sudden it's nothing. And they really need to change their diet. I don't know what they need to do because this team is so frustrating to watch, President Chad. It's almost like you have no idea. It doesn't even matter the team that he picks. You have no idea what that team is going to do on that pitch. None. None, 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 none. So, as a Chelsea fan, am I confident? Am I comfortable watching Chelsea play? Do I think that team could contend even for top six at this moment? That's a big, big doubt. That is a big, big doubt. And the way how things are going, Mauricio Pochettino doesn't even look like he's going to see Christmas in at the bridge. He really isn't looking that way right now.
One other question I want to ask you in terms of Brentford. I think most of us felt overall Brentford is a solid team.
Yeah.
But who was going to score the goals, right? With the ban
For Tony.
given to Tony.
Yeah.
But this Brentford team continues to show themselves a solid mid-table team in the Premier League. You could only ask yourself if they could perform even better when Tony returns. Because, I mean, one of the things for me, I found Mbeumo was a throwaway artist last year.
Yeah.
He used to get real sitters and throw away. So I had real concerns about Brentford scoring goals. But in the absence of Tony, Mbeumo has really stepped up. He has really stepped up.
Yeah.
He's not a throwaway artist this season.
Mm-mm.
So with Tony, if Mbeumo could continue in this form, I think Brentford is going to be a force. I think they're going to be a force. So let's just touch quickly on Arsenal. I mean, Arsenal dismantling Sheffield United is not really news, right? Sheffield and Luton are the two teams. If you had to pick a team to play on the weekend, those are the teams you want to play.
Yeah.
Right? Only Manchester United the other day make Sheffield look good, but they still couldn't hold on to a lead, right? So, but Nketiah, boy,
Yeah.
hat trick. Every time I see Vieira play, he impresses me. It amazes me that, I mean, I understand with some of the personalities why he may not always get starts, but he was on the score sheet as well. And Tomiyasu, well, I think he probably surprised himself to score.
Yeah.
Because he's not really the scoring type. But Arsenal seem to be making sure that they're competitive, making sure that they're there and thereabouts. Do you see Arsenal challenging come the end of the season?
Yeah. This season for sure. I see them challenging for the title. And I will say why. Arteta has built a team around his young players, and he definitely has taken a lot of positive pages from Pep Guardiola's books. So what he would have done, he would have used the same strategy that Pep Guardiola used as Foden, with Foden, bringing him out few games in a season, knowing that he was well up and ready, but playing him little bit, and then having him come out in a season where he's potentially going to cause a lot of devastation. So there was one season where Foden played must be about 4 games coming off the bench. Then the following season, he played a lot more games in the second half of the season. And then the next season, he was a full-fledged player. I see that happen. It's happening already with Nketiah, especially with the loss of Jesus. Nketiah has always been, I used to relate him to a player who has everything except being super clinical. but he definitely has worked on that now. So he's a threat. But then also he's bringing back Smith Rowe. I mean, they might say it's just a game he bring him back, but he's constantly giving him little bit of minutes because he's trying to bring him back, and we know that he could be devastating. But the other player along with Nketiah that I'm seeing him starting to give the same Foden type approach is Reece Nelson, and Reece Nelson could be dynamite as well. Do I expect to see a lot of Reece Nelson in the first half of the season? Not really, but definitely come January, he could get a lot more minutes when a lot of the different cup games and different things come in, as Phil Foden did, and then break himself into the first team. So I expect Arsenal to contend because this same young core. It's not like with Arsene Wenger where they have a youth, they bring out the youth sign for maybe a season or two, and then they sell them for a major profit. Arteta is hinged on building an empire, and you're seeing the confidence now. What makes me believe that they are going to contend is that this season they have proven that they can grind out results. So the game against Chelsea looked like a lost cause, and normally Arsenal would have started to fray under that type of pressure. However, we saw resilience from these young players. We saw them fight and get themselves back in the game, thanks to the keeper. I mean, the keeper had a moment of madness. But at the end of the day, they showed that they could be resilient and grind out a result. What also has me thinking they will contend as well. They are no longer taking. Arsenal had this syndrome where they used to throw away a lot of points to the small teams. And that has changed. Now against the small teams, Arsenal have taken the approach that if we get a chance to embarrass you, we are going to embarrass you. And that is what winners do. They set the marker and make other teams who may be competitive with me or able to make a game tough for me. It puts them in two minds and makes them panic. So if you see me at a side 6 this week, you are going to come to me instead of coming at me with the confidence that you should have. You're going to come with a bit of doubt, thinking, okay, well, we can't play the football we normally play and expose them, because if we do that, this team capable of hitting us 4 as well, when that wouldn't necessarily be the case. So they have what it takes to contend in the end. If I'm being honest, I just think that they won't get over the line. I think they won't get over the line just yet, particularly because I've seen Pep. I think Manchester City will win it, and I've seen Pep do this before as well. He managed to do it with Borussia Dortmund, where he had a season basically getting results, but not being rated with the Munichs and everybody up there. But he managed to get his results quietly, and then made a real remarkable run in the late end to win the title. So I think the title is going to come down between Liverpool and Man City, in my opinion. But Arsenal is going to contend with them right up to the end. But I think a close third I could see with Arsenal.
All right. So let me just run through the table. You have Spurs on top with 26 points, 2 points ahead of Arsenal, who are level on points with Man City, who are 1 point ahead of Liverpool. And after that, we have Aston Villa 5th, Newcastle 6th, Brighton 7th, Manchester United 8th, West Ham 9th, Brentford 10th, Chelsea 11th, Wolves 12th, Crystal Palace 13 on 12 points. Everybody, let me read it out and then we'll talk about that after. Crystal Palace 13, Fulham 14, Everton 15, Nottingham Forest 16th, Bournemouth 17th, and in the relegation zone we have Luton 18th, Burnley 19th, and Sheffield United 20th on 1 point. Now we need to understand that Chelsea at 11, Wolves at 12, Crystal Palace at 13, and Fulham at 14 all have 12 points. So from 11 down is 12 and beneath. So 11 to 14 is 12. Everton have 10. Nottingham Forest have 10. Then you have Bournemouth at 6. Luton have 5. Burnley have 4. And Sheffield United have 1 point.
Wow.
It is almost, not yet, almost mathematically impossible for Sheffield United not to get relegated. But when you have from 11th all the way down, only on 12 points, Burnley and Luton still have some life in them. So we will see how that goes. We'll be keeping an eye, but
Yeah, and I think Burnley in particular, as you mentioned, Burnley, Luton has a lot of fight. What Luton remind me of is they pretty much are like the Watford, and definitely their striker up top, Morris, is very identical. He's very much identical to Troy Deeney as well. So they have a very rugged, direct approach. It's still championship level though. So they may go down. I think the most impressive team down at the bottom fighting up there is actually Burnley. Burnley has been looking really good. Company has been doing really well. But what Burnley is struggling for, I don't think Vincent Company has put his hand yet on who he can say is my finisher of the plays. So they don't have an out and out finisher. They have a lot of players that create problems.
I would
Lyle
be
Foster,
very
who they bought, is a golden as well. But who is the goal scorer? I have no clue.
I would be disappointed if Burnley goes down because
Yeah.
Burnley is playing really attractive football.
Yeah.
But as you say, they just do have Premier League quality strikers.
Yeah.
And as
And
a result,
also,
you're competitive in games, but you can't, because goals win matches. You're
yeah.
not winning games. And that is the disappointing thing because as a coach, when you look at what Burnley is doing on the pitch, Kopane is showing himself to be a good coach. And they
Yes,
would
yes,
like
yes.
good coaches to stay in the league. So hopefully Burnley could get themselves together.
And the thing about Company as well, I think what he needs to adjust. I don't think his job is in jeopardy because, as you said and I said as well, they are playing really attractive football. They just can't score. We know we have seen this from a team that we were just praising a little while ago, Q Wolves, who are notorious for doing the same. I think what Company needs to tweak is the fact that know which games you are going to commit to because we have seen in quite a number of games against the teams that are bigger than him. It is commendable to go at these teams and show them that you don't fear them. But you can't open up yourself and try to play brand for brand with some teams because you're not quite there yet. And I think that some of the losses that they have gotten and the manner in which they would have lost some of the games, it isn't really um, the scoreline in some of the games don't really reflect how the game looked. You understand? So I think some of the games you need to take a more cautious approach, at least to start. But I think I could see I would love to see I echo your sentiments. I would really I think Burnley and Company deserve another season in the Premier League with what we have seen so far. They have been brilliant, but they just don't have anybody to finish their chances, boy.
Yeah, and that is unfortunate. Next weekend, the biggest game, well, on paper, is Spurs Chelsea. I say on paper because when you look at Spurs form and you look at Chelsea form, really is not that big of a game.
Yeah.
It will only be a big game if Chelsea pull off an upset.
Yeah, it will be.
but that game is on Monday. That's the last game of the season. So sorry, the last game of the weekend. So after that game, Tuesday or Wednesday, we will be right here
Yep.
on EPL Rewind to talk about the weekend's events. It's President Chad and the man Adelaide
Yep.
logging off. Remember, people, like, subscribe, and join the Fantasy Blitz Fantasy Football League. You
And
don't
let
want
me
to
tell all who watching this, the Fantasy Blitz Fantasy League is not for the faint of heart. Come with your A game, because if I tell you, if your favorite color is not red, you might have to just adapt it because one week I was in green and the next week I say, but wait now, so far reach. these guys not playing. So if you really want to get better at this Fantasy Premier League thing, you need to be in the Fantasy Blitz Fantasy
correct it,
League.
right?
You have
Correct
to
it,
be in
right?
it.
All right, people, enjoy the rest of your week.
Yes, guys, we love
Support the
all of it.
United Hour. Click that like button and subscribe.